Millions of years ago, a diminutive creature with an inquisitive expression roamed among the trees and grasslands on the wide plains and scattered forests of Africa. Sahelanthropus tichidensis, as we have named it, was similar to a chimpanzee in many ways. But if you paid attention, there were certain things about its face and skull that distinguished it from the rest. In 2001, a team led by Mitchell Brunnett made an interesting discovery in Chad's deserts. They found a nearly complete skull which they called Tumai. This particular skull was 7 million years old and one of the earliest examples of human ancestors. What really makes Tumai unique is its blend of characteristics similar to humans and those common to apes. For example, although its cranium resembled that of an ape in size, the hole at its base where the spinal cord goes through revealed something about it that sets it apart from others. This tiny creature may have been walking on two legs sometimes, judging from the hole at Tumai's base. The creature might not have been very firm or for prolonged periods of time. However, it was a significant start. Let us fantasize Sahelanthropus that rambled over Africa plains and forests looking for fruits and occasionally climbed trees, as well as stood on its hind limbs to get a good view of the surrounding. Sahelanthropus didn't hunt so much. Rather, it spent most of its time gathering fruit, leaves, and probably insects. The teeth morphology shows that it had quite a diverse diet. It could not make tools because it was not intelligent enough, so only used hands to search for and eat food. In today's Africa, you can observe various types of animals, starting from lovely little ones to the wildest predators. Nevertheless, these numbers were even higher then, when many of them became extinct due to different causes. This means that they probably lived in little groups that traveled together and protected each other against many threats, because this species had such diversity with regard to factors affecting Tumai or its friends. The climate was becoming altered, thorny woodlands were replacing dense forests. Sahelanthropus began to be replaced by creatures that were more diverse and had advanced features, and the next step after it was Ardipithecus ramidus. Ardipithecus ramidus emerged some 4.4 million years ago in the very same territories where Tumai and his people lived. It resembled its ancestors but came with changes that permitted it to adapt to new environmental conditions of those times. The skeletons of this species were located in Ethiopia in 1994. Scientists found more than 100 pieces of their bones, which became a breakthrough for them and helped to provide a much better idea about their life and characteristics. Ardipithecus possessed an interesting trait that differed from that of Sahelanthropus. They spent less time on trees than on ground. Their legs had transformed such that they could walk upright, but still hold on to tree branches. They possessed hands and feet like those of Sahelanthropus, which indicated that they were semi-arboreal as well, but slowly getting used to living on land. Though their heads were smaller than those of Sahelanthropus, their brains had grown larger. This was a good sign that they were becoming more intelligent. This showed that their diet, which used to be rich in meat, was shifting towards fruits and leaves, as indicated by the absence of large sharp canines anymore. They lived in groups similar to those of Sahelanthropus, but bigger ones with more cooperation. They could communicate well among themselves, and this social life protected them from possible threats. In 1974, Lucy, a remarkable fossil in Ethiopia, was discovered by many researchers. Australopithecus is the type of primate to which Lucy belongs. It is a nearly complete fossil, and it is estimated to be around 3,200,000 years old. As was mentioned before, Africa always had many different animals. One of these animals that were very famous and dangerous but now extinct is the saber-toothed cat. This high diversity of wild creatures made life hell for Lucy. When she went to the waterhole, crocs would be ready for her. Whenever she was trying to pick fruits, the saber-toothed cat would come after her. Even when she tried hunting, she ended up being the prey of other animals. While most of them seem to have died killed by some other creature, Lucy is among few of the fossils that indicate death was caused by natural causes. Scientists learned from Lucy's fossil that she and her kind gradually moved their life from the trees to the ground. How did they figure this out? From the shoulder blades of these creatures, because their shoulder blades are something between a human's and an ape's. You know, an ape's shoulder is very powerful for hanging from trees. The shoulder of Australopithecus shows that it was getting weaker because its body no longer needed that powerful shoulder for tree life. Lucy could walk on two legs much better than previous species, and it can be said that this is where they managed to adapt to bipedalism. The teeth of this creature show that it was herbivorous and ate all kinds of vegetables, grass, leaves, and fruits, and they even dug up roots to eat. When scientists realized they were digging up and eating roots, they understood their intelligence because eating roots indicated that they figured out that roots were more filling. Interestingly, even now, chimpanzees, gorillas, or any modern-day apes don't have the sense to dig up and eat roots, showing that Australopithecus was completely separating from its previous species and was becoming a smarter, more modern creature. As we said, Australopithecus had to fill up on vegetables, although they could eat meat too, but it wasn't readily available because they weren't as strong as other predators. Even if you look at apes now, they use tools but not modified ones. For example, if they want to break something, they pick up a stone and use it to break it, something other animals don't know how to do, and that stone is technically a tool. But most likely, creatures like Lucy, that is, Australopithecus, modified stones and sharpened them. This shows that they were distancing themselves from apes because their intelligence was growing. The oldest modified stones found are 3,300,000 years old, which is even a bit before Lucy. No animal today can carve and sharpen stones, so it shows that Lucy's brain was functioning. Australopithecus was about 1 meter tall. Because they weren't very strong or fast, they ate meat like jackals. They would wait for the predators to hunt, then hang around waiting for them to finish and leave so they could eat the leftovers. Lions, tigers, and such usually can't use meat the way we do. They just eat the surface and leave. But Australopithecus, because they had hands and their brains were working and they had made tools, understood that if they broke the bones, there was a lot of meat inside. They could eat all the meat and leave just the bones. Another difference Australopithecus had from gorillas and other apes is that, unlike gorillas, where only one male can exist in a group, Australopithecus didn't have this problem among themselves. A big difference with Australopithecus was that, unlike other apes, the males didn't leave after their female gave birth. They stayed together as a family. When Lucy's skeleton was pieced together, it showed that she died of natural causes, but one of her bones was broken, and she had lived with that broken bone. If we move forward about 1 million years, we reach Homo habilis. Just like Lucy and her kind, they still use trees, but less and less. How do we know this? From the strength of their shoulders. Like Lucy, their shoulders had become less powerful, and their backs were less hunched, which showed they were slowly learning to walk on two legs. The thing that caused all these changes, from the beginning until today, was the brain of these species. Homo habilis were also smarter than Australopithecus. The name Homo habilis means handy man. Why did they give them this name? Because they were the first ones who could make tools and use them. You might ask, what about Australopithecus? Weren't they the first to make tools? Yeah, they were the first. But when they named these guys handyman, it hadn't been discovered yet that Australopithecus could also make tools. Maybe if they had discovered it earlier, they would have called them handyman too. For the most part, Homo habilis fossils have been found in eastern and southern Africa. The fact that these beings had brain bigger than Australopithecus, something about 500 to 700 cc, was realized when scientists first discovered these fossils in 1960. This increase in brain size may not appear significant initially, but at that time such change was revolutionary for them as it indicated the mental and physical development of their evolution. They were still short, though taller than Australopithecines at about 1.2 to 1.4 meters high, and weighed from 30 to 50 kilos, which was approximately 10 kg more than Lucy weighed. Thus another important difference between them being longer legs, while no longer reaching their knees with hands, making walking on 2 feet possible. A major difference between these humans and Australopithecus was that they no longer had that big snout, meaning the snout had pulled back, and their face had become a bit flatter. Along with a flatter snout, their eyebrows had also lost their prominent ridge and became smoother. But something that hadn't changed yet was their nose. It still remained flat and hadn't developed the bone and cartilage structure like ours. Even though they were called handyman, they weren't much more skillful than Australopithecus. They could also make tools with stones or wood, but they hadn't made a revolutionary advancement. But do you know what the important difference is between these two species in terms of skill? The difference is that in Homo habilis, more of them were skilled at making and using tools compared to Australopithecus. In Lucy's time, only a few of them had this skill. You could say only the geniuses among them could make tools. Some scientists believe that Homo habilis didn't need to make more advanced tools because the ones they had were still used for hundreds of thousands of years afterward, so there was no need, and that's why no new inventions were made. Even though Homo habilis could not hunt well, but they were intelligent enough. They acquired knowledge on how to use their tools, think and use their minds in getting food with less struggle. They may not have been able to hunt a herd of large animals, but they could find carcasses through their tools and make use of what is left over from other predators like Australopithecus, but with better tools and a more intelligent brain. Homo habilis dwelled for almost 1 million years, and so it was time for evolution to move on, and the Earth needed more intelligent and braver creatures that would spread all over the world, like Homo erectus, or upright man. We watched the video from its start, and by now we are at a point where we have just seen Homo erectus. It took 6 million years for those apes to evolve into Homo erectus, but it only took 1 million years for Homo erectus to evolve into us. Interesting, right? Homo erectus lived until about 100,000 years ago and is an important stage in human evolution. The first species of humans who walked uprightly as well as were intelligent in nature. They were true men, if you will, everything before them being anything between man and ape. Homo erectus were very similar to us, with heights ranging between 1.5 to 1.8 meters tall while weighing around 40 to 65 kilograms, which made them taller and more heavily built than Homo habilis. Their teeth became smaller, their snout and jaw pulled back. Most importantly, their brain got bigger. They were called upright man because of their height and posture. The term Homo means human, whilst erectus means upright. Their spine almost straightened, and unlike the earlier species, they were no longer hunchbacked. Their tallness made them run faster than Australopithecus and Homo habilis, which further avoided clumsiness in them. It is said by scientists that one reason these humans became less hairy was to enable their running processes, as hair made them very hot and could not help them to run properly. Their brain had almost doubled in size, with a volume of about 1200 cc. When we examine the bone structure of this species, we see that they were avid meat eaters, and most of their diet consisted of meat, so it's clear they were very skilled hunters. They hunted any creature in groups. One of the important aspects of human intelligence is communication and living together. So, could Homo erectus talk and communicate with each other? Speaking is something you can't tell from fossils, and they didn't leave any writings behind, which is why there's doubt about this. But we do know that their brain was big enough that they definitely could communicate, though we don't know exactly how. One of the most significant achievements throughout history for human beings was fire taming. Fire enabled cooking of food. As a result, cooked meals made teeth and jaws smaller and brain increased its size because nutrients in cooked food, while people grew taller and more robust. These achievements, like making stronger weapons and controlling fire, made them braver. Brave enough to leave Africa for the first time and go on adventures. We don't know exactly when they left Africa, but it's been about 700,000 years since they left, and they spread out all over Europe, Asia, and Africa. Some believe they left 200,000 years ago. There's no exact number, but what's clear is that they first controlled fire before they left, because it was with fire that they could go to colder places. The tools made by Homo habilis and Australopithecus were just stones with a sharpened end, but they didn't care much about the grip, and the end of their tools wasn't ergonomic. But Homo erectus made tools from stones that had a comfortable grip and were more efficient and sharper. One of the interesting tools that have been found is called the Homo erectus hand axe, a neatly crafted, ergonomic stone tool. They used this for a lot of things: hunting, cutting up their prey, breaking bones, and most of their tasks. These stones are heavy and very sharp, and maybe even one blow from them could take down an animal. 5 Homo erectus with 5 of these tools surrounding any animal could easily kill it. The bipedal creature is slowly showing itself. Of course, many wooden tools were also made, but wood doesn't last long and doesn't fossilize like stone, so they haven't reached us. When we look at the life of Homo erectus on Earth, we see that they had a long and fruitful life, and every day they made some progress. Don't confuse this with today's progress. These were the kind of advancements that were valuable at that time. Scientists say that about 117 years ago, Homo erectus disappeared from the Earth. Not that they suddenly went extinct, but evolution branched them out, and the stronger ones survived. After Homo erectus, humans split into two groups. One group became Neanderthals, and the other group became Homo sapiens, which basically means wise humans. Let's get to know the Neanderthals first. One thing all primates have in common is that their lives are full of danger, and if they're not careful, they'll be wiped out instantly. As we mentioned earlier, when Homo erectus discovered fire, they left Africa and moved into Asia and Europe, which means Neanderthals evolved in Europe and Asia. Because humans had left Africa, they entered colder environments, making life harder for them than in Africa. In present-day Croatia, in a place called Krapina, a cave was found where a Neanderthal family lived. The condition of their bones shows that they were attacked by other Neanderthals and were all eaten. It's good to know that if Neanderthals were hungry, they wouldn't hesitate to eat their own kind. Most people who imagine Neanderthals think they easily killed a mammoth and had fresh meat for a while. Yes, some of them had that opportunity and could occasionally kill and eat a mammoth, but that wasn't the case for most of them. The only fresh meat the Neanderthals in the Middle East could get was mountain goat meat. Scientists say this was pretty impressive because hunting mountain goats is really tough, especially back then without guns. Archaeologists believe that this goat hunting shows Neanderthals were smarter than their predecessors and had strategies for hunting. As also said previously, contemporary humans or Homo sapiens lived throughout the same period. The Neanderthals had bigger brains compared to modern man, but this did not make them more intelligent than the Homo sapiens. Neanderthals were also tougher and more robust than Homo sapiens, but Homo sapiens had a feature that eluded Neanderthals, a better optimized body structure which helped brain development. Their bodies needed much food, hence making them big eaters. For example, Neanderthal men required 7,000 calories each day as opposed to the 3,000 that we need today. This overeating habit of Neanderthals made them eat everything, from worms and bugs to every part of an animal, whereas Homo sapiens ate meat, plants, and fruits. This excessive need for food was a big problem for Neanderthals. Most of the fossils from humans of that time are found in caves, which shows they chose caves for shelter, partly because it was a safe place, and also because predators were scared to enter caves, especially when they saw fire inside. When they went hunting in groups on occasion, they would run into other bands of Neanderthal hunters, but sometimes they would encounter another type of human being called modern human or Homo sapien. In many parts of the world, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens both interacted with each other and even gave birth to children together. That is why when you look at the DNA of people now, there are Neanderthal genes found in all of us. As we said, Neanderthals developed from Homo erectus, who came out of Africa and were therefore less so in Africa. Besides being present in Asia and Europe, most Neanderthals interbred with modern humans on these two continents. This implies that if you compared African DNA to Asian or European DNA, you would find Asians and Europeans had more Neanderthal genes. Neanderthals had such a close relationship to Homo sapiens that they could bear children with them. We cannot tell how the two kinds of people dealt with each other, but one can assume they did not know they were different species. For instance, a Homo sapien could look at a Neanderthal and presume it was similar to him, while the Neanderthal would also think the same about Homo sapien. One intriguing thing about the Neanderthals as well as Homo sapiens is that they used to follow cultural norms or adopt traditions. Also, when someone fell ill or grew old, they took care of him, hence, when one died he was buried by them. Consequently, this might imply that even believed in existence after death. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals disappeared from the Earth. Their population gradually declined until they were gone. The main reason isn't really known, but the most important reason scientists suggest is that they needed a lot of food, and it was hard to supply it, so they started to starve and slowly died out. Meanwhile, modern humans were continuously improving, getting smarter, finding easier ways to live, and that's who we are, modern humans or Homo sapiens.